Welcome to Braver Leaders, the podcast where we talk with leaders about what they got very right, but also very, very wrong, and industry experts about their leadership knowledge. I'm Sam Harvey, your host. I'm a psychological safety researcher, founder and director of Braver Leaders, and team performance coach. If you are liking the Braver Leaders stuff, if you are liking this podcast, do us a favor, like, subscribe, and share it. That's how podcasts thrive. And get on our website, braverleaders.com. Look at our free resources, steal those, share them with your mates. They are yours for the taking. Now, today, I am very, very excited. I have my very good friend, Robyn Abou Chedid.
Yep.
Did I say that right?
You did. How did you get that?
And I don't know, from New Zealand. How did we get that right? Who is a personal branding expert. How else do you want to be introduced, Robyn?
Oh, I like identity coach.
Oh, I love that.
But people don't search for that.
Okay.
Yeah. So they find me by typing personal branding.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Identity coach.
Identity coach, yeah.
And today we are talking about leadership identity. And I said to you just before we started, I was thinking, man, I've wanted to talk about identity for a long time. It's a big thing in team coaching. It's a big thing in leadership. And I was kind of going, who should I speak to? And then we met.
Yeah. Well, exactly. You're presenting.
I was presenting.
At a conference, and I'm like, oh, this guy laughs at his own jokes. I love him.
I'm hilarious.
Oh, you are hilarious.
Yeah, I definitely think I'm hilarious. I think you and I are the only two people on the planet who think I'm hilarious. That's awesome.
Right, that's all that matters.
Yeah. And we had a chat afterwards, and we did start talking about identity pretty quickly, didn't we? About personal branding.
Yeah, because everyone has one, right?
Yeah.
But not everyone knows who they are and knows where they want to go. So it's about creating that and then living who you are.
Yeah, right.
Especially after COVID, there was this huge identity crisis, right? All of us were in this transition of, either getting let go or not having a stable income, or a lot of relationships fell out during that space as well. So everyone was trying to figure out, why didn't I start my own business? Why did I have to wait for this? So everyone literally went through an identity crisis and started to realize, hey, what is it that I want to do, and how do I make my life more purposeful?
Interesting. Because of that, I guess like a forced pause, right?
Completely, yeah.
Yeah, I remember seeing this video actually. New Zealand shut its borders, right? Which was a bone of contention for many of us who were outside of the country.
Crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy. And they shut their borders, and they had this video of Aotearoa, which was just completely desolate. And it's sort of New Zealand's waiting, and all of us who are outside of the borders going, yes, we know.
Oh my God.
But this kind of like, it's this lasting memory in my mind of everything just being paused, right? And we all go, oh, wow, what am I doing with my life essentially, right?
Yeah, totally.
Which is pretty mad.
It's like, yeah, exactly. Time stopped, really.
Yeah.
And everyone was in the same boat. So it's also a really nice time to have this, reflection. Because usually what happens when you have reflection, everyone is kind of moving ahead and you feel a bit left out. So I think that's where that huge transition happened. And then people actually started to action it. So there was a huge wave of people actioning it, especially out here, because we were quite lucky out here to have the lockdown quite early, and then being able to kind of move and really, bring all these things to life. So having that support network was amazing.
Okay. So before we dive into this, like, tell me about your identity. Who are you? What do you do? Tell us a bit about you.
Yeah. So I specialize now in personal branding,
but
my background is extensively in marketing. I actually started in software.
Okay.
I've got a huge technology background.
Okay.
But over the years, I realized that I absolutely loved communication and storytelling and all that branding and identity elements. So I kind of pushed myself towards that. I was doing personal branding for a while. I was always there, always had an interest in it. When I first actually got my first job in software, I remember going to the interview, and I was sitting through that interview and I was thinking, oh my God, this is so boring. It was completely monotone. It was a huge company, actually. They were based. They were
hopefully none of them
a New Zealand-based company.
Actually, oh my God.
They were. But they were huge. They were in North America, Australia, Europe.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my God, this is not, when you come out of university, you think L'Oreal or some kind of fun fashion brand as a female, right? It's your first instinct. Ended up getting the job. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to be so boring. It was Microsoft and Cisco and NEC and like back in the server days and all that telecommunication. But honestly, it was the best job I ever had
Oh, yeah.
because of the people that were in there.
Yeah.
So if it wasn't for them that gave me that space to grow and, excel in my role, I even got an award. I'm only saying that because it was because of them, a national undergrad award, across Australia.
Yeah.
They flew me out. They came to the ceremony. So it was just kind of those small things that what we call today culture that made a difference. So I was like, why are we working for these big brand names, Google, Microsoft, Apple, when really it's the person day in, day out that makes your everyday different and better? Why aren't those people at the forefront? Why aren't those managers at the forefront? So I had personal branding in the back of my head like 15 years ago when I was first working.
Wow.
And it's not a new practice. Celebrities do it all the time. Actors do it all the time. They've been personally branding themselves as the heroes for a very long time. But it's become very new and corporate. And post-COVID, that's when that personal branding started to surface a lot more during that identity crisis.
Yeah, right.
So the whole need for it, when the market shifted, everyone started to be like, oh my God, I need to brand myself. So yeah, that's my background. I also specialize in consumer behavior. So I'm a very, very curious person.
Yeah.
Very similar to you, probing, love it, get to know someone. So when I do personal branding, it's very much personal.
Okay. Yeah. That I really love that bit that you said about the people. It's the people that make or break the job, hey? And I actually was having this conversation with a colleague of mine yesterday about how essentially you can make someone's life brilliant or terrible, right? Like there's that kind of fine line between triumph and disaster.
Totally. Triumph and disaster. They're so far, but they're so close, right?
Exactly, right? And so you can actually, by treating someone really well, helping them feel safe, helping them feel rewarded, helping them, all of those amazing things that can happen in the workplace, you can set their life on a trajectory of kind of joy and happiness, right? And conversely, the opposite is true, right? You can actually, when people are insanely stressed, they become very ill. Their family become very ill. Their communities, like because of all of the stuff we do as leaders, right? And so that kind of, it really matters how we act. And then I guess what we'll probably come back to, I'm guessing, is this kind of authenticity of, okay, are you doing what you say you do in the workplace, right?
Completely, yeah. And usually what I find is leaders who are comfortable with themselves and their own purpose and alignment, because there are a lot of leaders that don't like their job, or they're in a role thinking, oh, they're just not a great leader. And maybe they're good at doing the work and they think that their next stage in life in progression is being a manager or a leader, when it's not necessarily. And then all of a sudden they're responsible for everyone's livelihood, right? That reports into them. And exactly like you said, it is a make or break. It's your everyday that you're going in. You're in, your work is majority of your day.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And that's some of the work, a lot of the work that we do actually is these people that have stepped into roles. You were a brilliant salesperson. You should lead the sales team.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry, what now? This whole, the idea that because you were good at your job, you're going to be a good manager. And I think we use the words leader and manager too interchangeably, in my opinion, right? Like anybody can be a leader. Leadership is a personality trait. Management is a job.
Yeah.
When we're interchanging those, I find that, people say, well, because you're in charge of people, you're a leader. My opinion is you don't need to be in charge of people, right?
That's interesting. Yeah. And I think that's when people call themselves a leader and they're not.
Yeah.
Because they're not really leading, right?
Yeah.
And I know that you obviously know the concept of leading from within or leading in front, which I really quite like. Yeah. So I find that great leaders lead from within. They don't put themselves so much far ahead. And I always find those that are comfortable with who they are the ones that lead from within.
Yes. Yeah, you said before, a leader, may not like their job. And what immediately went on in my head was all themselves, right?
All themselves, yeah, exactly.
And there's so many people that really don't actually like who they are because they've kind of, they've built this essentially a facade, right? Of this is the successful person I am. I want this kind of brand, and let's come back to that. But in reality, that's not who the life they live, what they do, all of that kind of stuff, right? That again, that kind of it's like an incongruity. Is that
Yeah,
the right word?
there's the synergy, right? I always say you have to marry your professional and your personal life, and then you've created kind of like a great brand. And I also ask the question when I'm having my discovery sessions with leaders, I'm like, if I took away your job title, can you please describe yourself to me now? And everyone panics.
Yeah.
Everyone pauses and panics, and they're like, I haven't really thought about that.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Because they're like, I am my job. I'm like, but you're not.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. If I took away your job title, describe yourself.
Describe myself. I would say I am fun, energetic person to be around. I love to facilitate and support you in whatever that you're doing and make you be the best. I'm not after influencing thousands. I want to influence one great leader that influences thousands.
Love that. Really cool. You've thought about that.
I haven't actually.
You
No
haven't?
one's really asked me.
I love that. Right on the spot.
I know. I was like, oh my God. Wait. Yeah, I know it, but I haven't. Yeah. But I know that's what I want to do. I know my mission because I've also been on my own, personal branding journey and rebranded myself and repositioned because we're dynamic. That's going to happen, right? 2 years down the track, 6 months, 3 weeks, you might be someone different.
Yeah.
So that's why when I am working with someone, I say that I go, it's going to change. It's not set in stone. I'm very fluid. We're going to be fluid because you're going to be evolving.
Yeah, love that.
And I'd love for you to evolve. Don't stay stagnant. Yeah. That's how I curated that.
Love that.
that thought.
Well, it seemed, I don't want to say rehearsed, it seemed like you knew it.
I knew it, yeah.
Yeah.
But now when I said it out loud, I was like, oh, I know, I feel it. That's true.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I love that. Somebody actually asked me, Emma Burdett, she has a company called Wild. Do you know her?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, she actually said to
Well, I
me.
mean, know of her. I don't know her personally.
Yeah,
but
right.
She's got some great brand.
We were having a conversation. She said, "What's your soul mission?" And I was like, "That's an interesting question." And for me, I took that as what's my purpose. And so the same sort of thing, right? And I actually very quickly was like, "Well, my purpose is to share my story to show others that it's all right to do so."
Okay.
And create connection as a
vulnerable.
result.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. And it was like just like that as well. And it was like, oh, cool.
Cool, I just defined.
Yeah.
There's my brand positioning.
Yeah, exactly, right. And it works for braver leaders and it works for what we do, right? Because it's everything is led by this like, hey, we stuffed a bunch of stuff up. We started getting it right at some point. Here's what we got wrong. Here's what's working now kind of thing. So, yeah.
And I think we're still trying to figure it out, right?
Yeah.
I don't think everyone that says, oh, I figured it out, no, because you're still growing, right?
I mean, there's only one day where you've stopped figuring it out, right? Hopefully that's a few years from now.
Don't.
Yeah. Okay, so when you work with leaders, let's kind of break this down a bit. What do you do to start them on their kind of personal branding, personal identity journey?
Yeah. So my first step is discovery sessions, which is a mix of worksheets but conversation.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than getting someone to fill out a form and then assessing them based on that. So it's not something rigorous, but I do it over 3 weeks so they have time in between to reflect.
Nice.
Because what they might answer that day might change in a week because there is a lot of probing and curiosity. I've had a lot of people cry.
Yeah, nice.
I too cry sometimes because you just feel that feeling, right? But they're vulnerable and I love that and they need to be vulnerable because I go on that journey with them. So when they start portraying themselves in the next step, we build the foundations and then we portray themselves online. They feel comfortable with who they are. They're like, we've all got backstories. We've all got a trauma or something that maybe created that pivot in our life that took us to where we are. So once I kind of undress them in that first phase, I then...
Sorry, say that again.
undress them.
Okay, cool.
And then brand them.
That's what I thought I heard.
Exactly what you thought.
Good.
And then we build the foundation. So foundation is basically creating what I like to call a digital ecosystem. When you're looking online, are you who you are in the real world and how do we match that? Because most of the people I work with have been, and these are the people that I want to work with, have been so busy and excelling in the real world and doing a fantastic job that it's absolutely not reflected online. So all of their expertise and knowledge is just, the world's best kept secret, basically.
Interesting.
So it's getting them out of that comfort to start sharing their insights and their experience because we want to hear that.
Right.
That's what we want to hear. So going back to the foundational bit, I'll look at the digital ecosystem and say, okay, where are we going to represent you online, whether it's a website, social media or whatnot, and then decide, what's your social gateway channel, I like to call it. What's the first channel we can start on, and then grow from that. Because you need to master the channel, right? You need to be comfortable.
Gotcha.
And at the end of the day, the objective is for them to enjoy the process. When they're sitting there and thinking about, what should I post? I don't want to do this. I hate being out there. Then you're not enjoying the process.
Sure.
So I go through with them on the steps to make them comfortable with who they are, and then slowly teach them how to express themselves and think of ideas. So I work very hybrid. I create content for them. I support them, but I encourage them to also post their own, because it's not sustainable otherwise. They're the experts with the insights. A lot of people will come and say, hey, I'll just take care of all of your content. But if they're not personally invested or not giving that individual their thoughts and ideas, you're going to turn around and say, hey, that doesn't really sound like me.
Yeah.
I'm not really happy with my profile, Well, because you need to be invested. So that's part of the vetting process, and I'm very transparent about that. Just whoever's doing it in general, you need to be personally invested and enjoy it.
And it must be quite therapeutic.
It is. That's how they give back to me. So it's crazy, because I learn a lot from my clients. Yeah, I learn a lot.
So it's therapeutic for you too?
And me too, yeah.
Interesting.
And them. Yeah.
Okay,
So,
in what way?
because I feel that's my give back, right? I'm still doing my job and giving back in it, and you're not always in a position to be able to give back.
Yeah.
I remember when I first got my marketing job, one of my childhood friends, she was like, why are you doing that? She goes, you don't really give back doing marketing. And I was like, oh. She goes, you're just making people buy things that they don't really need.
Well, depends what I'm selling.
Yeah, I know. So I was just like, oh, how do you give back in marketing? And usually it was if you work for a charitable event and whatnot, like company and organization. So part of it, it's therapeutic for me, and you said for them, So I become a coach without saying the word coach.
Yeah.
But I'm in their corner, and that's what I say. I go, look, I'm in your corner.
Yeah.
I'm your brand advocate.
Yeah.
Who you are in the real world, trust me to reflect that online.
Interesting. And for them, it must be quite a journey, because I've been going through that recently myself in therapy, to like, who am I? So I'm a third culture kid, right? And that I grew up in a culture which is not the culture of my parents.
Okay.
And so I've always felt Aotearoa, New Zealand, is home, but then there's this pull to Europe, and I can't explain it. And then moving to London, and I'm walking down Columbia Road Flower Market, and 2 plants for $5, and I'm like, Grandma, that's you? And just this kind of, 2 for $5. Tell you what's the deal. I could do the rest of the show in a London accent.
You could, go for it.
This kind of, okay, so my parents are actually British. I was born in New Zealand and kind of really identify as a New Zealander, but then actually I'm like literally one boat and plane ride removed from being a Brit.
Yeah.
And so this kind of, okay, I'm figuring out that. But then, like you said, when I love that when I asked you who you were, the first thing you said wasn't my job. It was a personality trait, right? And I try and do that now as well. Like, I'm kind, I'm generous, I'm quite funny. Like, which you agree with, get in.
100%.
This kind of, what I lead with is personality traits rather than this is my job. Yeah, I happen to be a team performance coach, and that's what I'm passionate about, and sharing and, talking about the things I've stuffed up. But actually these personality traits, and so going through that with my therapist has been really eye-opening for me. And it sounds like the journey you take people on.
It's very similar.
Yeah.
In a way, it's a bit of a hybrid.
Yeah.
So I'm having a conversation, but I'm actually taking out marketing positioning elements from them to create a strategy. But at the same time, I do want to get to know them, because they don't really know themselves.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And you might feel that you know yourself until you kind of go on that self-exploratory journey.
Yeah.
But it's so interesting that you were talking about, being from another culture and living somewhere else. And I have the same feeling. I'm from Australia, but my background's Lebanese.
Yeah.
So my parents created that Lebanese culture, and then, they fled their country from the war, so they had to change their identities.
Interesting.
So I think the whole generation is just always changing identities, and we're in a prime spot right now to kind of, who do we want to be? And we have the opportunity to live it. Whereas back then they didn't have the opportunity, because a lot of the time it was around their kids and survival and, going to a safer country.
Yep. Yeah. And that is, it's extremely prevalent these days, that sort of thing, right? Where people are in different cultures, they have an identity is becoming what do I identify as? Actually, I met with Harry Pereira today.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's Portuguese background, but British, right? And so we had that discussion about, what do you identify as? And it was really interesting, right? Because it's like, this pull towards Portugal for him. I love Portugal too. But yeah, like, as I say, this kind of, this thing of pull from where am I? Who am I? Yeah. Interesting. Okay. And so when somebody's, doing, and don't give away all your secrets here, yeah? How do people get hold of you, actually? That's one question I should ask.
So LinkedIn, on my website as well.
What's your website?
girlnamedrobyn.com.
Nice one.
Yeah.
So when people are doing or thinking about doing their personal branding and their personal identity, what are the first kind of steps they should personally take before they come and see the expert?
So that's super interesting. So most of the people, well, actually everyone that comes to me is ready.
Yeah, right.
I never go to anyone. I've actually never pitched. Me showing up online is kind of planting the seeds, right? And because everyone has an identity.
Yes.
Are you expressing it correctly?
Yeah.
So most of the people are in either they feel unsettled. Let's put it that way. They feel unsettled somehow, or they want to get to a higher place. And a lot of people have different objectives for doing personal branding. Some people wanted to sell their company. Some people had investors that were interested. They needed to look a lot more authentic and more credible online after the meeting. Some people want to transition out of C-level into entrepreneurship. Some people wanted to get from director up until, a CEO transition, a merger. So every time I speak to anyone, I have a clarity call and I ask, what's your objective for branding? And then how do we get you there? I've turned down one person.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I've turned down one person because her objective was just to be famous.
Okay, cool.
And I said, I'm not capable of doing that.
Yeah.
The audience chooses your fame, not me.
Yeah.
And it was just all about her and bragging, and it was completely in misalignment with what I do.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I'm not the right person for you.
Yeah, fair enough. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, it feels like the wrong thing to be trying to personally brand yourself, right?
Yeah, I wasn't. I was like, I do think about it. Maybe she just didn't explain it correctly. But you can see it in there's a competition to kind of be out there and famous, and it wasn't like giving back in any way.
Yeah.
So when I do speak with anyone in that clarity call, I do make sure they're an expert of something.
Yeah.
Because if I'm going to brand someone and put you out there, you better know your stuff.
Yeah.
Because if you're out there and you don't, it's partly on me.
Yeah, makes sense. So really that, again, back to that authenticity, hey, like, and I mean, if you walk up and say, I just want to be famous, well, tell me, okay, that's great.
Good
what
stuff.
for? Yeah, good job. Good job. What do you want to be famous for, right?
Yeah.
Like, start with, I'm a big believer in this because I think, especially in the coaching industry, right? And, I'll ruffle a few feathers by saying this. There are a lot of people who, in all industries actually, who are, not qualified really, right, to be doing what they're doing. And so actually you need to be either very experienced or very qualified to make sure that you're actually dishing out good advice, right? And so, as you say, be an expert in what you do. And I mean, I think there's this it's probably an arbitrary stat, but 10,000 hours makes you an expert or something like that.
Oh, is it? I've never heard
something like that. Okay. But
don't repeat that.
Who knows who's going to listen to this? But the idea of, you need to, there's a lot of work which really goes into that. And if you think about that, I mean, when you started your career and you got really interested in branding and you've been kind of thinking about that for however long, you're an expert, right? Like you are an expert, and I see it in the way you brand yourself and the way that you've got a huge following. Like it's incredible.
Oh, thank you.
And I think that well, it's true, right? Like you're an expert at what you do, and that's why I wanted to have this conversation. It's like like that authenticity of like, yeah, I know what I'm talking about, right? And I think when we first connected, I remember looking up and being like, oh man, she knows what she's talking about, which is cool. Like it's the check back, right?
Yeah, exactly. But you did that online, right?
Yeah.
So this is why after you meet someone in the real world, they'll validate you.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
The check back.
The check back.
Yeah.
And most people don't have the check back.
No, most people fail it miserably, right?
Completely.
Yeah. Oh, hey, what do you do? Oh, okay. You literally, your LinkedIn page or whatever has got a picture of a dog and...
It's treated like a CV. It's not a CV anymore.
Yeah, no, it's not, is it?
It's not a CV anymore.
Yeah, LinkedIn for sure, and then Instagram too. Obviously, is it seems to be really big in the UAE, right? Instagram.
It's very visual. TikTok's starting to kind of merge, and everyone is obviously when they say TikTok, they kind of panic.
Yes, I entirely panic.
I actually learned a cool fact recently. Friends that work in TikTok, because it's a Chinese-owned, right? They were saying when the founders were thinking about TikTok, they were like, remember when you were a kid and you pulled out the remote and just kept flipping the channel, thinking what to watch? Yeah, that's the concept.
What?
So TikTok was constant thinking what to watch. Yeah. They're like, we have it in us. Why not take that behavior online? So they created the platform with those really quick user-generated stuff that everyone tried in COVID.
So you're literally like flicking, looking at the next thing. Man, how do you get people's attention to stop long enough? And we were joking before about the cat chasing the laser, right? How do you get the cat to chase the laser long enough? Because that's what humans are becoming.
You get sidetracked, entertained. Look, I think there's part that has to be entertaining.
Yes,
you know, we're tired of the boring things. We want to be always stimulated somehow.
Yes.
It also makes us switch off from our real world where we're having all these, heavy conversations, you could say. But actually LinkedIn is in a prime position because it doesn't have many experts talking. To be very honest, if you think of your network and how many experts you're connected to, how often do you see them sharing their voice? Very, very little. And now because ChatGPT is integrated into LinkedIn, they're doing this huge AI transformation on it and really, really pushing knowledge and expert content. I think usually when I say social media to any leader, and I tell them, I go, when I say the word social media, it is just a tool. It is not your child on TikTok.
Yeah.
I need you to disconnect that association.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a way to share your voice.
Yeah.
Just like when you walk into a room, right? You talk. Very similar. Just talking online.
Yeah, right. It's having a conversation with the person or the people that you care about in terms of your interests, essentially, right?
Yeah. But you also, there's also what you would like to speak to and who you'd like to speak to.
Yes.
But at the same time, I'm sure people read your content that are in your circle.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pushed out further than your followers or your network online.
Yeah. And so you're getting... Okay, so you need to get clear on who you are, what you kind of value, find your voice and your expertise. We were talking before about companies using, LinkedIn or their executives' LinkedIn to really boost their presence.
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
So I try and if I'm going to simplify it a little bit in terms of the voice, because everyone's like, personal branding, and then you've got, the company pages. So basically there are three pillars. You've got the corporate voice, which is the voice of the product or service, right? And usually that speaks louder. So let's say Apple, for example, the products speak louder than the organization in general, because that represents that. Then you've got the leadership personal brand voice, which is the voice of the people in the organization. And then you've got the employer brand, which is the voice of the culture. So for example, Google, everyone's like, when they think Google, they think flexible hours, they think cool office, they think really nice environment, because they've worked on a really big employer brand. Universities do that very well, especially in America. They're all about come to us, we'll give you the best education. That's them as an employer in a way. So there's these three pillars, and now there is a demand for all kind of three working together. So personal branding with the voice of the employer brand.
So employer, corporate, and personal, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay, wow. So bringing them all together.
Bringing them all together.
And so does that mean then that the personal needs to be aligned with the other two?
Yes.
Is that right? So it's kind of, because it would be a pulling in of the personal almost, would it not?
Yeah. So usually when you're, getting hired for a company or interviewed,
Yep.
you want to make sure that your values are aligned, right? And so
Yes.
everyone's got these standard vision, mission. So it's up to the company to live up to that vision and mission, and then actually live their own values in the organization. So anyone they're bringing in needs to obviously be aligned with that value. Do you value this? Do you do that? Otherwise, there's not going to be continuity, and you're not going to enjoy your everyday. If one value was fast-paced and aggressive, right? If they said our values are fast-paced and aggressive, it would attract some people. They're like, yeah, I love that. I love, being on it and going for it. There'll be other people like, you know what? No, I want a chilled, kind of relaxed. And so I think the corporate voice needs to be louder. People need to understand what they really stand for.
Yes.
Right? And then it's up to the leaders to amplify that. So when you look at Richard Branson and Steve Jobs, for me, are like the pinnacle of corporate personal brands.
Okay.
Because of the association with the corporate brand and then also them as a person. They're phenomenal. You only when you think about Richard Branson, it's all positive feelings, right?
Yep.
And I always say there's two ways of succeeding in personal branding. Either you're likable, super likable, or you're really controversial. You're like a Trump or Elon Musk.
Yep.
So usually sitting in those two, especially now, like when you said kind was one of your we lean towards kindness. It makes our everyday different, right? When someone smiles or says hello, or the tone that we're talking respects us. So we want to be around that in general.
Yeah, interesting. Some of the work we do with teams and organizations on their identity, right? Like getting them to think about, what they want to be known for, right? And again, I was having this conversation yesterday, and I love the point about being aligned. Because essentially, there are not many organizations which pass the values-led organization litmus test, right?
Okay.
Most organizations will kind of go, we've got some values. Oh yeah, cool. Do you actually live them?
Yeah, totally.
And are they many organizations will have, I don't know, one off the top of my head, we value honesty, you know.
Yeah, integrity, teamwork.
Right.
Teamwork.
What does that look like? How does that look for you? What does that mean in terms of your identity, right? So how does that show up in your workplace? And then you have these people showing up to interviews that just want a job, especially living here, right? It's so expensive. London, New York, whatever. You're living in these big centers where there's a lot of jobs, but it's hideously expensive to live. So people are desperate often for a job, right? They're like, I need some money. They don't really care whether or not they're aligned with values. And this misalignment causes this, so not only does it create turnover, which is hugely expensive for employers, but it actually probably, I'm guessing, and I'd love your opinion on this, would water down an employer brand.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Turnover in general waters down an employer brand.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're like, why are they leaving?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then it also goes down to the people they're hiring. They're leaders, right? It's your person that in your everyday that's making someone leave. It's not the company. It's how you're creating that environment, right? And what you're doing, right? In that whole team dynamic. So yeah, it absolutely, it feeds into that. So I think it's super interesting when you were saying about people desperate for jobs, especially out here, because it feels like it's not your home, but then it does feel like home. It's kind of one of those. People feel like it's not because you don't get the passport, but at the same time, the environment they create is so home-like. Being here 12 years, this is home for me. Like when people ask me. I used to say Australia, but I'm like, oh no, my home's Dubai.
Nice.
Because it feels like home, right?
Yeah.
It feels like home.
It's like a collection of strays.
It's not that feral.
No, I kind of like it. There's something like Lord of the Flies about it, right? Like, where everybody's like run away and they've taken over the mainland and we're all going to make it together. And there's something in that.
It's collective. You're right. It is collective. Everyone's headed towards somewhere strong and ambitious.
Yes.
And there's a drive and there's a pull. And they've created this amazing kind of vacuum that you kind of live in a little bit because it pulls you in all the time, you know. I went back home, I'm saying home Australia because I'm used to saying home, but I went back home for a year. And then I was like, oh, there was, you know, Dubai hits the spot.
Yeah, right.
Right. And it allows you to kind of also figure yourself out. I think when you're away from where you're raised, you get to figure yourself out a lot more because you're thrown into environments of really kind of uncomfortable environments, right? You got to create your own kind of ecosystem. You got to create your own movement. You got to structure yourself. You've got responsibilities that are building up. So it's like, what footprint do I really want to leave?
Interesting. You could see on my face that I was like, whoa, say more. Right. So I love that. So being away from home, and as you were talking, I was like, yeah, it really does, doesn't it? Because I guess it's a bit painful.
It is.
And pain kind of introduces you to who you are, doesn't it?
Yeah, totally. I mean,
man.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But weirdly, you thrive in it, right?
Well, not everybody.
Not everybody, but I mean, in terms of how you think, right? You come really positive.
Yep.
Everyone that lands here is ready to go somehow.
Yeah, it's true.
Whether it manifests into something else, unfortunately. But you're energized when you land.
Yeah.
And then it is figuring out. And it is a little bit hustly here. I'm not gonna lie. But there's also a really good support network out here because everyone's the same.
Yeah. I've really found that. I mean, I haven't been here that long, and there's the rhetoric that I heard before I arrived was Dubai is shallow, fast paced, for sure. But yeah, there's not a lot of depth to the place, and I mean, that could be mistaken for culture because the culture here is interesting, right? Because there of course there's the Emirati culture, but you don't see that much of that, especially in Dubai. I think once you get out of it a little bit, you see a bit more of it. Yeah, for sure. But it's kind of almost a transplanted culture, but then there's no one dominant culture. Therefore, there's not really one almost.
It's like a Dubai culture.
We make it up, right, as we go along kind of thing. But yeah, like this being here and going, okay, so who am I? What do I want to be here? And there's definitely this this real sense of I've found of people who are willing to help. You know, like how can I help you? I've been asked that question more times here than I've ever been asked in my life. How can I help you?
Oh, that's nice.
And it's like, oh, that's super cool. And like people have followed through too. Some haven't, but that's cool. You know who you are. Just kidding. Some haven't, but like that's cool. Like not everybody can help, right? And so, yeah, I've really noticed that, and there's this kind of ability to go, oh yeah, cool, let's do things together, and people want to actually just get stuff done, right? Which seems really nice.
Yeah, honestly like it's a great environment to be around.
Yeah.
And it makes you kind of live your identity as well.
Yeah. And
also the space to change it.
Yep.
You know, I went through a change. I left corporate once before and I went into fitness completely. I was doing fitness modeling, thinking I wanted to train everyone. And then I was like, you know what, this isn't really for me. And then I kind of went back into marketing. So you can always change and reposition and rebrand yourself as long as you're credible. Like I was doing athletics since I was a kid, you know. My punishment was push-ups at 8 years old. I hate push-ups.
Come on.
It was. Dad was like, push-ups.
Like
100.
Wow.
Yeah, like 100. It was horrific.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that though. That kind of that Dubai has this, like a flexibility to it. Hey, like, and you can kind of play with that a wee bit about who you want to be, what you want to do, that kind of thing, right? Yeah. Okay. Nice. All right. So, man, that was a good tangent. I like that.
Yeah.
Tangent man. I've got a friend who actually has a superhero costume that's got Tangent Man written across the front. That's his thing because he goes on such tangents.
Why did I picture it a bee outfit? Is it like a bee?
No. I believe it's purple. I'll have to ask him. Damien, let me know. But yeah, Tangent Man.
I don't know why I thought that.
But let's bring it back around and close off. So, look, super valuable advice. What would be your top 2 or 3 pointers before or, during when people are wanting to get in touch with you that people should start working on?
Okay. I think the first thing that I'll tell anyone is stop comparing yourself.
Love that.
Stop thinking because everyone else is doing it, you have to do it. You'll do it when you need to do it.
Awesome.
Yeah. And it will find you. I'm ready, The next step is, the next advice is take the step, stop thinking and start doing. Like people sit in that ideation phase and nothing happens.
Yeah,
and you're going to be left behind. That's just a fact, right? That's when that takeover kind of happens in your head. Don't miss that opportunity that you feel, because whatever you feel is correct, and take it and be brave enough.
Yep.
Be brave before you feel confident. It's kind of works with brave leaders, right?
Like what you did
Be
there.
brave.
Yeah.
And then lastly, enjoy the process of getting to know yourself. And know that it's going to always evolve.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
There's going to be so many more social media channels and technology that's going to open up. They're just tools to express yourself. The minute you're able to do it on one, you'll be able to do it on many.
Love that. Those are great. Thank you. And I think, I love not just because of the brave part, but I love that be vulnerable, right? Like you have to actually put yourself in a position of vulnerability to grow.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I had this very conversation yesterday that actually vulnerability must come before trust, but in this case, growth, right? And if you don't take that risk, like I'm doing something a bit mad at the moment and starting another company, and it's like, okay, cool. But my actual driving factor was, if I don't do this, there's a real opportunity. If I don't do this, and it's 60, which isn't that far away.
It's very far away. It's very, very far away.
Yeah.
You're aging all of us.
Yeah. At 60, if I get there and I go, I should have done that, I'll kick myself, even if it fails.
Oh yeah, I'm the biggest fan of the quote when it says, "Feel the fear and do it anyway."
Yeah. Awesome. Look, mate, thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I feel like
awesome.
We could probably
feel like we could go on forever.
Yeah, a couple more hours. But no, I really appreciate your time and thanks so much. And we'll probably do another one, I don't know, in 2 weeks.
Awesome. I was going to say tomorrow, but that's
tomorrow.
Awesome.
I'm flying tomorrow, so I can't.
Okay,
but yeah, I've got to go and do my personal branding and take some videos of me flying.
Oh, do you? Little selfies.
It'll only be in economy class, so it won't be that cool. But
It's Photoshop.
Personal branding. Yeah, exactly.
Reality.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sam. Awesome.
If you like this, again, like, subscribe, share it with your mates, and get on our website, braverleaders.com. Check out our free resources and share them with your mates too. We'll see you next time.